Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to Know Your Gear QA podcast episode 282. Thank you guys so much for joining. Hope you guys are doing well. And all right, let's get started. I hope you guys had a good week. My week was fun. I've had a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm sure you guys have a lot of stuff to talk about. And I have some early questions. I have some questions that I got throughout the week. I have maybe some stuff to talk about on my own. Who knows? Who knows where this episode will take us? So there you go. Normally I start the show with some announcements and stuff. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to remind everybody that if you see somebody with a blue name and a blue wrench, that means they're a moderator. So they're here to help and it's mostly help me, but help you as well. And then of course you see somebody with green in their name. It means that they're a member, a channel member. It's kind of like patron, but on this side as well. And then of course we have patrons. This show is sponsored by members and patrons. That's it. So that's all it's all we allow for the sponsorship on the live shows. So for the podcast. And I appreciate all of you for supporting. And keep in mind, everybody supports. You can support for free. Just hit the like button. Or don't. I always hate telling people to hit the like button. I always kind of feel like you should just hit the like button because you want to. And I'm not even sure it even helps. I'm trying to think what helps. You know what helps? Just hanging out with me. That helps. Thanks. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's just get into it. Let's get going. I have some early questions, and there's a bunch I have that I like. I want to do them out of order, though, because the second question is one I kind of got my attention from DJ, who says, "Hey Phil, I have a PRS SE with corrosion on my P90 pole pieces." So he's talking about the P90 pickup pole pieces. There's corrosion. So in other words, like rust or oxidation or what have you. Any suggestions for removal, or is it just, I don't know what that is. I'm not trying to censor it. I don't know what it is. Like, it's not a bad word. Let's say it's just screwed. How about that? The answer is, I don't know what pole pieces, because I don't know what kind of pickup. You said it's the SE, PRS SE. I don't know what they use. So sometimes they can use like a nickel plated kind of satin finish, and that's easier to clean. You can do that. Here's what I would do. And of course, if they're chrome, then it's different. But either way, what I would do is you can remove them from the pickup. So first thing, use a screwdriver and raise them so you're above the plastic bobbin, the black or tan plastic bobbin. Go ahead and use, like I use micro mesh. You can use that and just polish it. You can polish it with a microfiber cloth and some compound cleaner, some kind of compound that you like. Brasso, I use, like I said, a lot of the Music Nomad products work really great for that, for doing that. They have a tube, I forgot what it's called. But there's a tube of cleaner that Music Nomad uses that I absolutely love. Like I said, I swear by the Music Nomad cleaning supplies. I bought every single cleaning supply I've ever gotten from them, and I buy the bulk ones, the huge ones. So I mean, I'm just telling you, it's just like my string swing hangers. It's just something I use, and I don't have a whole lot of desire to try anything else because I'm really happy with the results. However, that all being said, don't worry. You can take them fully out. Don't worry about unscrewing the pole pieces out of the entire pickup, by the way. All 6 of them. And I shouldn't say pole pieces, they're screws. Keep in mind, they're essentially the same screws you're going to see in a humbucker pickup. But since I saw your question early, I pulled this up so I can share with you. And I just want you to know that this is StewMac. You don't have to go to StewMac, but as you can see, they're $1.19. If you want, you can find them anywhere else. You can just buy replacement pieces. See, flathead screw right there, unscrew it. Like I said, try to clean yours up. It's great. If not, don't worry about it. There are probably suggestions in the comments too of other cleaners and compounds you can use. But I would just use, me personally, I would probably just use one of my Micro Mesh 12,000 polish sheets and just polish on it a little bit. And because I'm refraining from it, I feel a little guilty not telling you, because I know it triggers some people in the internets, but I would use steel wool as well. But I'd like to point out that I wouldn't use steel wool on the pickup. I pull the screw out of the pickup, and then I wipe it with steel wool, and that usually cleans it up. Now, if it's chrome, then it sometimes will work, but sometimes it doesn't because the chrome will chip off And in that case, you can just buy new ones. And like I said, if StewMac sells them for $1.19, trust me, you can find them on eBay for like nothing. They'll pay you to ship them. Somebody, if it's $1 at StewMac, then it's probably like somebody pays you 10 cents somewhere else, because usually StewMac's on the high end price point of everything. So that's pretty reasonable, especially if you have the if you partaken in the Stu Max plan that we got you guys hooked up. I'd like to point out that a couple people put comments in the videos of the Stu Max plan. That's where, you know, we negotiated you guys get 50% off that, that their payday wasn't until this Friday and they missed out on it. And I feel really bad, and I'd love to say that Stu Max would extend it, but I didn't have any way of getting that done. However, what I will tell you, and the link is down here below here, it's on the videos. I actually took it off. I feel bad. I took the links off the videos yesterday because the thing ended, and they're still available. So I put them back, and they're down below too. So if you missed out on the Stu Max plan, if you want to try it, click that link. I'm not saying it works, but when I tested it, it was working for me. So if you can still get the discount through them. Do it. Like I said in the comment down below, do it and enjoy it with good health. If it doesn't work, I apologize, but I don't know if I pretty sure, because they emailed me that they are aware that the campaign's over, but maybe they're just leaving it up to see how it goes. Let it tap out for the rest of the week. So for the weekend. And so to answer your question again is, hey, if you got that program, go ahead and get those for $1.19 or find them cheaper, whichever works for you. But that's the fix. Clean them or replace them. I do suggest you try to fix them, clean them. I don't like throwing stuff away. It's just my thing. If I can fix it, that's always better than replace it, in my opinion. Not for the saving money thing. That's good. I like to save money, but it's more of a, man, I hate throwing stuff in the trash. It just bugs me. All right. Mr. Austin Music says, hey, Phil, I hope you're having a good week. I am having a good week. He says Hurricane Ian put, Ian, I haven't watched the news. I know there's a hurricane. So for the record, that's all I know. I'm fortunate enough to live in a state, which is Arizona, where the only thing happens is it gets hot and then it doesn't get hot. And then every once in a while it blows dirt around. And that's the full extent. We don't have tornadoes, hurricanes. You can say we have monsoons, but where I live, they're not really, that's not a real thing. Like it rains like a little. So stuff like that. And I don't have any family in Florida. I have some friends, but everybody I know said they were okay. So anyways, he's talking about the hurricane in Florida. He said, he put a tree through his roof, and therefore my humidity levels are really high. Any suggestions to dehumidify basically his guitars? I am, of course, I live in the exact opposite situation you do. So I'm always trying to put humidity into something. My understanding of, because I have humidifiers, they are also dehumidifiers, right? You can just switch them over. I don't know if that would be enough, but it seems like it would work. But reason why I wanted to read that question is sometimes I can't answer a question. In this case, I can't because I don't have humidity. It's not something I have to deal with. But I know a lot of you have great suggestions, and you might be dealing with that stuff. So if you guys could just kind of throw out some comments out there that are helpful, I'm sure maybe he'll catch an idea or two. And especially since it's a tragic thing like this, I just wanted to do that shout out. I'm sorry, I'm just reading. I just want to see if there was more. And then that also brought me to Jose Soto. Jose Soto is like, he's a longtime viewer. He's a really nice guy. He sent me, like I said, one time I mentioned this before, he sent me this really nice handwritten personal letter that was really nice in a card. And Jose said that he wanted me to know, and I think all of us to know, that his family and him made it through the hurricane in Tampa. And he says, thanks for all the prayers. And Florida needs it. So yeah, like I said, my heart goes out. I hate stuff like this. Obviously, we hate hearing about stuff like this. But like I said, it's one of the few things that Pamela says Arizona floods too. Not where I live. Arizona does all kinds of things. Because remember, Arizona is not just one thing. Arizona is a very diverse in its. Remember, part of the state is got snow, right? Where I live, there's no snow, there's no rain. It rains very rarely here. I'm in like the Phoenix area. It's just not flooding is more of a north of me thing. Even in Phoenix, So I've lived in the state since I was basically 10 years old. And I'm going to tell you right now, I can count all the floods on my two hands that I've been involved in. So like I said, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, just saying where I live just particularly doesn't happen very often, and nothing else really happens. So okay, let's see. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, and a lot of you guys are talking about Arizona's had tornadoes. I know this gets off topic, but yeah, Arizona's had stuff. But I'm telling you, like I said, nothing to speak of. The events are very minor, and if they do happen, it's very rare. It's not very often. Like I said, here, heat is your thing. It's just hot. Next subject. This one came from Christian, who says, "Hey Phil, what's my next?" He means mine. "What's your next Framus going to be? Framus guitar." Greetings from Berlin. I built a Framus. Okay. I don't mean like I had them build a Framus. I mean, I went to their factory and built it, and it never got finished. So I'm not sure why. What happened was it was a video idea where me and another YouTube channel went there, and we built two identical guitars. And his had humbucker, and mine had humbucker single, and I think his was like alder with a maple neck, and mine was mahogany with a maple cap and a mahogany neck. And I think his was bolt-on and mine was set neck, or maybe it was vice versa. I can't remember the combination. Basically, we had two identical guitars made from a Framus model, and then his was spec'd out, I think like a Strat, and mine was spec'd out like Strat specs, and mine was spec'd out like Gibson Les Paul, and I can't remember, maybe it was backwards. And the idea was to do these two videos and then discuss, like the differences between the two guitars, and of course show you all the footage. I have all the footage of me, like putting the frets in the neck and doing stuff and sanding on it and stuff. And his got finished and sent to him, and mine never got finished. And I reached out to them a couple times about it, and either got no response or just a like check back kind of thing. It's been 3 years. It was I can tell you right now, it was December-ish of 2019. So that'll give you a reference. So what is that? 2020, 21, 22, coming up on 2020. So 2020, 21. Yeah, so it's coming up on 3 years. So I'm thinking the guitar is never going to get made. So obviously I'm never going to do it, but I'm not going to buy a Framus until they finish this. And that one, by the way, we had to buy those. They weren't like gifting us those guitars. They were selling them to us at a artist pricing, which is just below it's below dealer cost, obviously, because we're going to be using them for promotion as well. But it was a pretty heavy investment of my time. It was a pretty heavy investment of everything. And then of course, it's even at an artist pricing, those guitars are expensive. So it's not like it's cheap by any means what I have to pay for the guitar when it's done. I would gladly pay and have the guitar done. And I know the guitar is not going to show up one day, because what's waiting to be done with it is it's waiting to be painted. And I never chose a color. In fact, I got to a point where I said, "Hey, why don't you just pick the color? Whatever, we'll get it fixed fast or finished faster for you guys." So they never finished the guitar. And some of that is because of COVID, and some of that's probably just because they just lost interest in the concept of maybe doing that video. I'm not really sure what happened. That's part of this. As you know, we hang out these Fridays. You guys hear a lot of these stories. There's a lot of that stuff. I've told you guys right now. Or maybe it's like I said, I have a custom shop curse. And I feel like a lot of custom shops never come to fruition. To the point where I can tell you right now, if any builders are watching this, I don't even answer builder requests anymore. At all. In fact, I delete you as soon as I see it. And I mean no disrespect to any other builders, but as soon as a builder reaches out to me and says, "Hey, we have a great idea for a builder series or an idea or doing a guitar," I just literally delete the email, just because it's always a lot of time into doing those videos. And I'm not even sure how much interest you guys have as a viewership to see somebody have an expensive guitar built out. But I feel like the only thing I can tell you from learning that is I personally wouldn't have a custom guitar made now. Not likely. We'll see. Okay. Neuroapathy says, why do you think Joe didn't want to disclose how he paints his guitars? So what I hope I'm saying that right. Neuroapathy is talking about is if you go to the Film Ignite 2 channel, I put a link down below. I did an interview with Joe Knaggs and Peter Wolf of Knaggs Guitars. As you guys know, I bought a Knaggs. This is my second one I bought used. I bought this used, and I really love this guitar. It's, you know, and I'm past, maybe I'm barely past the honeymoon stage, and it's definitely, it's speaking to me. So I was so excited about it. I reached out to Peter Wolf, who's one half of the Knaggs company, Joe Knaggs and Peter Wolf, and asked them if they would be part of my series of doing these interviews on my second channel. And they were apprehensive. They weren't sure what I was talking about. And to their credit, you know, because I told them what I was interested in, and they were willing to do it. So they came on the video, or to the channel. We did the video, and you guys, those of you who've seen it, know it's a really good interview because they're very candid. I know it's a good interview when my fear is that there might be backlash from things they say or do in the video, because they say things that are, let me put it this way. They have opinions, and I don't think they held back on them. And if you agree with their opinions or disagree, I don't know if that matters. What matters is they weren't sitting there just telling you stuff. You know, they weren't trying to sell their guitars. They were trying to tell you their story, which I really, really appreciate. Anyways, what the question was I asked them how they do like tops like this, how they, whoops, I'm pointing at it right now. I'm just kind of pointing at it. It's right there. How do they do the double painted tops? You know, obviously I know a lot of you are like, well, they tape it off, but I don't know if you can tell when you will see when I do the review of this guitar, there's a binding in between those two colors. There's binding in between those two colors. And then on top of that, they do wood stained ones. And again, they're bound, and it's very tricky. And I've been to, now after this weekend just passed, I've now been to 35 factories around the world that build guitars. And I've never seen anybody do that before them, for sure. And I've seen some people do it since, but the level in which they do it is awesome. So I asked them how he got the idea. Now, the question is framed that I'm being asked right now is, why didn't I ask him, or why didn't he want to say how he did it? Well, I think it's because he doesn't want to give away his trade secret. But I didn't press him on how he does it, because all I really wanted to know in that interview, this is just a backstory for those who've seen it or may see it later, is I want to know where he got the idea. I find that question is very powerful because it puts somebody in a position to either lie to you. In other words, like, where did you get the idea to do this? They're going to have to tell you, like, I saw somebody else do it and I copied them, right? Or they're going to say, I don't know. And then that tells you a lot too. Like, how do you not know where you got the idea for such a cool thing? And he told the idea where he came up with it and how he decided how he was going to execute on it. And that's all that really mattered to me. Was I was curious if he was going to say, like, I once saw a luthier at some music conference, and, you know, because there's a lot of times that's what happens. A company sees a small luthier do something really cool, and then they go, okay, I'm going to do that. So I was just really curious about that. I don't really care how he does it, because I don't think a lot of people are going to want to do it. It's a lot of hard work. That's why their guitars are expensive. It's a lot of work. You can't just grab somebody off the street and say, hey, start doing this. So, all right. Okay. Brian S. Guitar says, is it binding or purfling? Brian, I'm going to make you nuts right now. Ready? Yes. In some cases, yes. To both, depending on what it is. If you're looking at them, if you go online and look at Knaggs guitars, you'll see sometimes it's binding and sometimes it's purfling. That's why I'm curious about it, because they're doing it multiply different. There's different ways they're executing on what looks like the same look on different guitars. Very interesting. So there you go. Let's see. Okay, hold on. John says, oh, John, I love you. I love you for saying this. Pretty obvious how Knaggs does it. John, $2,000 right now if you do it. Not show me how. I know how he's doing it too. I know how they're doing it. I even have footage of how they're doing it. That's not the problem. How are they not messing it up? I mean, it's a tape line. It's a tape line very easy, especially on paint, but on stain, gets a little tricky. They have a little trick to execute it that tight. Those are tight tolerances. You have to see these up close to see what we're talking about. This is crazy. And I know the answer, by the way. I know how they're doing it because I have footage of it. But after you see the footage and you see how they did it, you go, yeah, you could do it, but you're going to have to do it a bunch of times before you can get it right, get it that clean. That's why no one wants to do it. It's a mess because what you're missing is knowing how to do it doesn't matter. Here's what really matters. It's very expensive to get that far into the part of a guitar and mess it up and have to start again. It's a really horrible process because remember, you have people stacked up and waiting for guitars. The high-end guitar market, if you notice, I tend to go with like at the whim of what I'm interested in at the moment. So for instance, sometimes I'm just interested in inexpensive guitars, and we talk about that on the channel. There's lots of those videos, and I do them. And then sometimes all of a sudden I'm on this kick where I'm always looking at expensive guitars. And I always love it because people always go, oh man, enough with expensive guitars, or oh man, enough with the inexpensive guitars. But the reality is it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with just I'm really interested in how somebody makes a guitar inexpensively and does it well. I think that's a really interesting, a really amazing thing that they do. And then I'm interested in how they make a high-end guitar because high-end guitars have a place besides just being expensive and for people who can afford them. You understand that ideas tend to come from top to bottom. And what I mean by that is especially like paint jobs and things like that. You know, you don't see, like, you have to understand when you get a car, like a production car, and it has a cool color on it, and you're like, wow, that's a cool color they did this year. Most of the time, somebody from that manufacturer saw at a car show a custom builder do a cool color, and then they kind of get the idea. That's how the ideas flow. Usually it flows from, like I said, top to bottom. Companies like Knaggs, companies like Parker that I've talked about, companies like, I don't know, name a ton of them. Paul Reed Smith, they tend to do something that is cool, because they can, because it's expensive guitar and there's no expense blockade. In other words, they can do whatever they want. And then inexpensive guitars copy it. For instance, look how many now affordable guitars have beautiful veneer tops. And they have those because, again, they get inspired by the looks of the expensive guitars and they emulate those. And next thing you know, you have a guitar that's affordable that looks great. And you know this is the true because anyone who's been in this guitar industry for a long enough time, keep in mind the industry is not that old as a whole, right? You understand that inexpensive guitars used to look very inexpensive. They used to look that way. And that isn't the most important thing, but it is kind of important because this is a feel thing, which means how you feel. You know, you have to be, it's an emotional response to something. Otherwise just put strings on a 2x4 and call it a day. That's fine, but sometimes there's a artistic thing to this, and you need artists to do this stuff. And then, of course, the mass-produced manufacturers will come at it and kind of copy it and make it affordable. And as someone who's been around this industry and looking at stuff, it's really cool to see how that goes. It's very rare do I see an inexpensive mass-produced company do something that the high-end companies take notice of and start emulating. It always works the other way around. So let's see. All right, hold on. Just reading some of the stuff to see if there's any. David says, I love it with, David, no offense, I'm going to call you a little bit. I love when people say, so what you're saying, I just got to tell you what I always say. Whenever someone says, so what you're saying is, that's usually never what they're saying. So he says, so what you're saying is there aren't a ton of original ideas in this industry. That's absolutely the opposite of what I'm saying. But that's what you're rephrasing it as. What I'm telling you is that the ideas usually start and come from a point of not worrying about what something will cost. When you get to sit down, imagine if I told you you had $1 million to develop a new guitar. Not to redesign the guitar from scratch, just come up with an idea of a guitar, the colors, the way it's going to be, the look, the design, the type of pickups, it seems silly, but you would literally just do whatever your heart desires. Now imagine you're in the same room and I come in and I say, okay, I want you to design a guitar. I want you to come up with a guitar, but I need this guitar to sell for $399. And you're going to start making a lot more different decisions, not only the quality components, but just by design. Like I said, it's a design. When you worry about the price of a guitar to the point, and this manufacturers do, as we know, even Paul Reed Smith, and I just using them as a reference because he's the most vocal about it. When you worry about the price of guitar to the point where you worry about how long the CNC machine runs, that tells you a lot. When they're like, hey, if we do this, the machine runs for 2 hours. If we do this, it runs for an hour. Therefore, we go to a lower, I don't want to say lower quality design, but for the lack of a better way of saying it, a lower quality design. So again, there's a reason. I will tell you that for those of you who are like, I would never buy a $3,000 guitar, I totally understand that. Totally, I actually understand on probably more levels than any other statement out there. However, what I will tell you is I believe this is my opinion. Your ability to not have to pay $3,000 is because $3,000 guitars exist, not the other way around. In other words, people can make guitars affordable because they can emulate guitars that are not affordable. And that's what they do. And that's what motivates them. It's the desire. That's why a lot of manufacturers use that same strategy of making these high-end, custom crazy creations that get us like talking about that because we talk about it, and then they make a sub price and a sub price and a sub price, and at some point you find the price that makes you comfortable. I like the word comfortable more than just what you can afford. A lot of people can afford more than they spend. They just don't feel comfortable spending more, even if they can afford it. And I think, like I said, what you see exactly that. Sometimes it's like, I always wanted, think about this. There's people who using Fender as example, people who grew up wanting a certain type of Fender, they couldn't afford a Fender. So they bought all these weird brands that were copies of Fenders that didn't look quite right. And they never felt really like they had the right thing. And now in today's age, you can buy exactly what you want. That looks exactly like the thing you want, but you don't have to pay the price you don't want to pay. You can pay whatever price you want. That's why the one thing I've really never connected with on the audience as a whole, is the complaining of price point, in the idea that it's like somehow you're being wronged when I don't understand when there's every price point available. As I point out to any friend that would ask me, it's like, hey, what's a good guitar for this price point? And I'm like, you can have anything you want for every price point. I can absolutely show you. In fact, if that's a video series you'd be interested in, I've done the ones about 500. I would love to do a video where I just literally, you pick a price point, every price point, and I will show you can find a quality thing in that price point. I honestly believe if you gave me $100, it has to be $108 because tax. If you gave me $108, I believe I could find you a decent guitar at a local store today without even trying. I'm not saying it will be a great guitar, but it will be decent. And that's pretty darn cheap, man. I don't know how you're going to beat that. That's a tank of gas at this point. So, sorry, Kevin's like, thank God for the JCPenney catalog for Harmony guitars. Oh, I wouldn't say that, but I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, BC Rich 581 says some good ideas never get accepted widely. Stereo sound, headless guitars. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. See, that's why I said sometimes, you need those higher end builders to kind of get that ball rolling. And then, like I said, the best is, the best part is then the emulations happen. And as they get emulated, there's good stuff. Okay, next subject or question that I thought was interesting was Happy Friday. This is from Bernard. I'd imagine the PRS pedals. Oh, I knew I was going to talk about pedals. The PRS pedals are really good, as are Fenders and a gazillion other brands. I love that you use gazillion. I love making up words like batillion, badillion, gazillion. I like that word, by the way. Gazillions, like Godzilla, billion. Got a gazillion other brands. To that point, I'm kind of fatigued. Sure, of course. That's, think of this, that's 90% of my job on YouTube. That's all these YouTube channels exist, as I've said. We don't exist because there's not good gear. We exist because there's too much good gear. There are so many guitar pedals that are good. There are so many guitars that are good. There are so many amps that are good, to the point where you can go nuts. Just, you're like, it's not like one day you're like, okay, there's 3 good things and 30 bad things. There is now 3,000 good things and like 30 bad things. You have to try really hard to find crappy gear now. current being guilt. I mean, it's possible, but it's not very likely. And if you do find really crappy gear, it's probably priced at a point that you probably should have seen it coming a little bit. But my point is, so I understand the oversaturation. I agree with you. That's why a lot of us started making channels about the stuff we liked, to center people, to say, hey, look, like you guys, I'm like, man, there's a lot of stuff. You can't try it all. So maybe somebody could try it all and at least get you ballparked into an area. That being said, the part of his question that's interesting is he's worried about the market oversaturation. Yeah, of course. I mean, look, the PRS pedal thing, as far as I understand from my memory, and I've told you guys this before, I remember, and I've told this story on the podcast before, I remember the first time I tried the Tremonti amp, the MT, which at the time, I'm 90% sure to this day, it was called the MT50. It was the same amp, but it was 50 watts. I'm pretty sure that's how I remember it, but I could have misheard what they said, and they should have said 15, but I would have swore it was an MT50 head. And I remember them passingly saying, hey, would you like to review it and do a video of it? And I was like, yes. And I was at the NAMM show. And I was like, okay, very excited. And then it wasn't like it was 2 or 3 years later that it came out. I did a video with Doug Sewell from PRS where I reviewed an amp that now at the time that I wasn't allowed to tell you about, I still can't tell you about. When I reviewed this amp, there was 2 of them, 2 prototypes. He showed them to us. We went through them. They haven't built them yet. This is from 2018, okay? So in 2018, I played a PRS amp that Doug Sewell showed me. Doug Sewell, the designer there, showed me. It doesn't exist to this point, but with these pedals coming out, would totally make sense. That's about the most I can say. And for the record, I'm not an NDA on that. They didn't tell me not to tell anybody. I just, as a courtesy to Doug, I told him I wouldn't tell anybody. But that being said, the pedals, I'm pretty sure the way I remember the emails was like 2 years ago, I think I got the email saying we're doing pedals. Like, oh, cool. And then it was like 2 years later and they're like, okay, we got pedals. And that's why I thought I was actually getting punked because, you know, they told me about it and then it never happened. And then they told me about it again. And then when they showed up and I saw the names, I was like, what the hell's going on here? Is this a joke? Is this like they're messing with me? And you gotta understand, the PRS guys are one of the few guys that I do videos of that take it so well whenever I talk about whatever I talk about. You know, like the new Archon, the new 50 watt Archon. I love that amp. I have one. It's a great amp. In my review, I said mine had a blim. It was humming. It had issues. It happens. I actually bought one and I like it. That being said, they didn't get upset. They sent me something else the next time. They sent me, it's like they do exactly what you hope they do. They don't take anything personal, and they move on. So I always liked that about them, but when the pedal showed up, I was slightly, for a little bit, thinking, are they messing with me? Like, is this good? Like, let's see what he says. Especially because, so you know, they were very clear that I couldn't release the video until a certain time. So I was like, okay. So that was a little different. That all being said, the pedals being made by Gibson, the pedals being my Fender, the pedals by PRS. Look, everybody's going to make pedals. Remember Buddha pedals? Remember PB did pedals? Carvin did pedals? Everyone's done pedals. Why? Because we buy pedals like crazy people. And all I can tell you again is I hope to always impart some piece of information you guys don't have, being that I'm on this side of the fence, so to speak. What I can tell you is this. I did a video about PRS pedals yesterday. I was as honest and as forthcoming as I could be about what I thought of those pedals, what I liked, what I disliked, okay? That being said, there's links down below, like it's disclosed in all my videos. If you click those links, it's an affiliate link, which means if you buy from Reverb or Sweetwater or, you know, a ton of other places, if you buy that, they give me a little something, like a lot of the channels, to give you a little kickback. Okay, that's not what's important. What's important is I get to see the activity. They sold a crap ton of pedals on my channel yesterday. The, so you know, the horse meat pedal sold at least 4 to 5 to 1 to the other 2 pedals. Now, I'm not really shocked about that so much with the flanger because it's $350, but I didn't think I was going to sell but one. I was like, this is going to be weird. People are going to say it's weird because it's weird, which is why I said it was weird in the video. Doesn't matter if it sounds good. It's weird. Where like I said, I flat out said in the video, I thought this was maybe a marketing move for social media because it gets all the people talking about social media, get every channel talking about it, right? And think of this, if PRS didn't send me the pedals, we would be talking about this Friday like we normally do. Like, hey, Phil, did you see the horse meat pedal? And I'd be like, horse meat? And then that would be a thing we talk about. And I was like, okay, so it's all about a click thing. That being said, I'm just telling you guys this. Please don't run out and buy them from this. But my prediction is horse meat pedals are going to get flipped. In other words, I think they're going to sell way more than they have. Just looking at the numbers already. It did exactly whatever it is, whatever you want to say about it. I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm telling you is what my initial thought is right. They probably picked a crazy name. I saw afterwards, after I did my video, I watched Paul Reed Smith video when it released, and I saw his reasoning for naming the pedal that way. And I'm like, and I will tell you this on a side note. I've interviewed him 3 or 4 times. I've met him 2 or 3 other times. Okay. Paul Reed Smith. What I would tell you from those interactions is horse meat, calling a pedal horse meat seems more like his personality than I've ever seen before. Like, I absolutely believe that would be his idea. It might not be. But I would have no stretch of the imagination going, he came up with that. He has the weirdest sense of humor to the point where half the time, and I've had this conversation with people at PRS Guitars. Half the time, I can't tell if he's joking or if he's being like, he's got an odd sense of humor. Okay, so yeah, I would say that lines up with his humor for what I've seen and what I've heard. It's a little strange humor. And again, that's the only way I can say that. So that being said, we're talking about horse meat and pedals and if they sold a lot. And yep, it was exactly that. All right. Lunamanic. Thank you, man. Great question. Lunamanic says, did I learn something new from watching his pedals? Well, I didn't know why it was called horse meat. I gave my best guess in my video. I assumed it had something to do with Klon. I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know. Like I said, I was trying to think of I seriously, at first when I read the name, when it showed up and I read the name, I thought, is it like cat food? Because I'm thinking like horse meat, isn't horse meat, isn't the joke horse meat? Like there's all kinds of jokes about horse meat, let's be clear. But the PG-13 joke about horse meat would be, isn't it in cat food and dog food? And I was like, maybe it's a cat food reference. And I was like cat, like rat pedal. I was like trying to figure this all out. And then finally playing the pedal, I was like, okay, this is very Klon-esque in the mids, kind of vibe. And then I was like, okay, Klon, horse meat, that was kind of thing. And then I got that far with it. And then when I watched his video and he said, oh, it's a Klon killer. See, that's totally his sense of humor. That's like, when he said that, I was like, yeah, that'd be like the jokes I've had him make when doing videos. By the way, if you ever watch my first interview with him ever, I asked him about pedals and he said he'd never do them. That's another reason why I was a little nervous that the pedals might not be. They just seemed a little elaborate and good to be like a joke just on me. But I was like, maybe they're punking all the YouTubers. What's funny? I'll tell you this funny story. If you haven't seen it, it's a great thing. I'll link it when I talk about it. Payless Shoes. Now I think they're gone out of business now, but Payless Shoes did they punked YouTube, Instagrammers, or whatever you call it, TikTokers, whatever you call this, influencers. They did this. Did you guys see that? Payless did a thing where they made a fake shoe store and invited a bunch of influencers to the shoe store and then showed them Payless shoes, but told them they were exotic, like $600 shoes. And all the influencers like, these are the best shoes I've ever seen. Wow, and it was like hilarious, right? They were like punking them. I literally was like, oh my God, I never thought about this. If somebody sends me a fake product, I was like going through it. And then if you notice my face in the video, at some point I'm like, okay, I'm just going to assess them on their merit. And that's what I did. And I was like, okay, we'll see. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm like, these are good. They're good pedals. I got that far with it. And I was like, okay, they're good. So if they are fake pedals in housings or something, they're good pedals. They're not cheap ones. So, or crappy ones. I shouldn't say cheap ones, because cheap pedals can be good pedals too. So there you go. That was the whole experience doing the pedals thing. So I sent all my friends a joke. I sent them a T-shirt and it says, "I survived doing the horse meat pedal review," because I was like, "Oh, good." By the way, also a side note too, I should also, because again, the show is about just kind of giving you a backstory. I considered saying no 3 or 4 times to PRS after I got the pedals. I sent I started to type up the email like, "I'm sorry, I just can't do a video of horse meat. This is just too weird. It's just out of my comfort zone. It's just too strange." And then I thought about it, and then I thought, oh, you know what? Let's just do it. I don't know. Let's just do it, and then be as honest as I can be about whatever the hell I'm hearing and seeing. So that's the answer. But the end of all that talk about horse meat is this: they're selling. So regardless of what you guys say, I'm not saying that means they're good. I like the one I demoed, but I'm going to say they did what they were supposed to do, man. They're killing with those things. I saw those links. It was like it was like a regurgitation of the Silver Sky. Everybody said this is stupid, and then you literally sold out. Speaking of Silver Sky, Jose Soto says, "Hey Phil, I have a Fender Professional II Strat. How does it compare to the Silver Sky SE?" They're different animals. I mean, look, I like the SE Silver Sky. That was a cool guitar I like to play and check out and do the demo of, and it was really, I liked it even more than the actual core Silver Sky for a lot of reasons. One being the neck feel a little bit, and of course a couple of things. I like the beefier pickups. But if you gave me a choice at the same price, of course, because that would have to be the only way to do this fair. If you told me, hey, I could have the Silver Sky SE or the Fender Professional 2, I'd pick the Fender Professional 2. 10 times out of 10. Here's why. Obviously, first, I just like a lot of players, I'm going to gravitate toward anything made in the USA or, made in Japan over made in Indonesia, even though I like that over made in China. Like that's the pecking order of things. I like always saying it this way: buying guitars that are made in the USA, buying guitars that are made in, Japan and stuff. That's a luxury, and if you can afford it, good for you, right? I mean, it's a luxury. And I'm aware of that because of the fact that I couldn't always do it. So it was just one day I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, I had a Mexican Strat forever that I loved. And then finally the day I got to buy an American Strat, it's not because I thought it was better. It was just because it was like, it felt like something, it felt like a, more exotic purchase. So that being said, there's a little bit of that over the fact, but actually just so you know, I prefer the specs on the Professional 2 Fender over the Silver Sky. The only negative I've ever stated in any video, and I'll stick with now, which is with the Silver Skies, is that they are very, very, very choice. All the choices are John Mayer choices for John Mayer, and I obviously don't play, obviously, not only the same way as him, I don't do that, but I mean, I don't, obviously, in other words, if we were hanging out talking about guitars, he would have a different affection for certain guitars than I would, and so on and so on. There's certain things I like about necks and feel and stuff that obviously he has a different, and he has a totally different style of playing guitar. I mean, besides the fact that he's just a crap ton better, it's a different style. So, all right, let's hold on a second. Let's do Antique Rocker says PRS, Gibson, and Fender have all entered the pedal market. Oh man, see, this is what PRS did this week. They're becoming a smarter and smarter marketing company. I can tell. I mean, there's no way. Look. Side note. I reviewed the Lawrence Petros 74 Deluxe pedal. That was a fantastic pedal. It sold quite a few, at least from what I can see from my affiliate links. Obviously, Lawrence is a friend of the channel. Obviously, he makes good stuff, or at least it's obvious to me. If it's not obvious to you, he makes great stuff. There was no discussion really that week of his products. And I could say that too. I think if you want to blame someone for Paul Reed Smith guitars figuring out this, maybe they shouldn't do what Fender did and Gibson did, which just announce pedals, maybe do this crazy thing. Look, there's some companies out there that have figured out that it's a little bit of, you got to get the hype machine going. Get it going out there crazy. So they did that. So obviously that's why we're talking about it on this show. So hopefully this is the last question about this subject. But Antique Rocker says, PRS, Gibson, and Fender have all entered the pedal market. How will this affect the pedal market and small business pedal makers? I'll tell you the same thing I told a friend who owns a pedal company when they were talking about, the longevity of pedal companies and stuff. And here's what I will tell you, this antique rocker. I'm gonna say the same thing to you. It doesn't do anything negative. Here's why. People buy things for all kinds of reasons, and people who are going to buy PRS pedals buy them for a plethora of reasons. One, because it has a goofy name called horse meat, and they just want to tell their friends they got a horse meat pedal. Two, their PRS, the internet term fanboys. Fine, I'm a fanboy of almost every brand, so you can throw the insults this way, please, because I could care less. The fanboys will buy them because they love the brand. They love the quality of the brand. Maybe they like the look of the brand, And again, keep in mind, it's, I'm wearing Vans tonight, right? I'm wearing a Vans shirt. I love Vans. I wear Vans shoes, Vans. Do I like the quality of Vans? Yeah, of course. But it's also, I just like the brand. I like the vibe for some reason. Actually, I know why I like the vibe. But anyways, look, my mouse pad's Vans. See, look at that. So there is a little bit of that. It's just a brand, and you know the brand and you like it. And, hell, if you're going to buy a PRS t-shirt, why not a PRS pedal? Why not a PRS strap? Why not a PRS whatever? And insert whatever brand doesn't get you triggered. This PRS is a thing that you don't like hearing about. Pick another brand that I just described. So that's going to happen, right? They're going to pick that stuff just for that reason. They're also going to pick that stuff because, like I said, maybe they plug into it and maybe he does have a different ear. Let's face it. These guys that have done stuff like Paul Reed Smith and Josh Scott and John Thompson from Bad Cat. I'm trying to think of Larry DiMarzio. I'm just thinking of people I know, relatively know, and I can tell you that Floyd Rose, I feel bad. Like, I just want to keep naming names. But anyways, the point is, what's the point? The point is that these people do have more than just the ability to start a business and make a product. They have an ear. I've said this a million times. Dave Friedman, they have an ear. More than they have the ability to make something, they have a sense of when it's right to be made. In other words, when it sounds right. Paul Reed Smith, in my opinion, has an ear. I mean, he does find a way to make something sound really good. Some people don't love his guitars, and some people do. The fact that somebody doesn't like it does not prove that he doesn't have any talent to design something. He does, because obviously people connect with him and connect with what he sounds. Artists do, so you name it. So that being said, that's where the cash in of that is. Fender is definitely the same thing. Fender putting its brand on a pedal is no different than putting on a t-shirt or anything else. Just people are into Fender. Again, call them fanboys. Again, I could follow that. I'm a Fender fanboy as well. That all being said, there's a different thing of that once those companies, in my opinion, once those companies cash in other words, once they tap that market, they're not going to chase that market. There's a problem with pedals and Fender and Gibson. Let's just talk about Fender, Gibson, and PRS for a second, and pedals and the problem with pedals. We've talked about the size of companies, and I've told you before that, like, let's say Gibson's like basically $1 billion company and Fender's $1 billion company, or damn near close. And Paul Reed Smith, maybe, if I was going to guess now, maybe they're going to do $90 million. Maybe they do $70, $80 million. Doesn't matter. It's definitely over $70 million. Let's just say that. It's safe to say that PRS is definitely a over $70 million a year company, for sure. Look at somebody of a pedal company that I think is extremely successful as a pedal company, maybe GHS pedals, Keeley pedals. Again, I don't know their numbers. I'm going to throw a guess. I'm just throwing guesses, but I feel pretty confident these educated guesses. These are sub $20 million companies, okay? If they are over $20 million, it's barely. In other words, what I'm trying to say is they're never going to hit $100 million. Well, I don't want to say never. You understand. They're not likely to hit $100 million like a guitar company that's selling $4,000, $3,000 guitars and $700 guitars. Just think about the SEs alone, the PRS SE guitars. The amount of guitars that they could sell at $600 a pop versus a pedal at $200 a pop. It's just the market's not like that for them. So what I mean by that, as I sum up here, is that a lot of these guitar companies are going to make pedals because it's easy. They can make the pedals. They have the sources to do it. They have distribution, because that's a big thing. A big thing about PRS is that he has all these dealers. It's just one more thing that can sell. I mean, trust me, there's probably some PRS dealers watching this right now, and they're going to be nodding when I say this. Like, PRS doesn't just call up their dealer network and say, hey, we're doing pedals. So if you want one, let us know. We're doing pedals. We're releasing it on September 29th at 3 p.m. You can order them now. You have to order this many of each one. It's a mandatory thing, right? It was probably like, there was probably no way that a dealer, I'm not going to say in my opinion, I already know this to be true. I just know because I know the market. There was no way the dealers were given a choice like, yeah, I don't think the horse meat's my thing because I have a different clientele in my store. I think I'll just do the flanger. I'm sure it was like you take all three and you can take X amount of each one. But either way, you're going to have the entire lineup of three, which is why Fender does three, or not three. It's why Fender doesn't line up pedals, why Gibson doesn't line up pedals. Notice Josh Scott. Notice Keeley doesn't come up with an entire line of pedals. Usually, I know Josh Scott did the series where they were all white, but you're saying usually they don't come out with a line of pedals because they're not going to force their dealers to go buy across that line. Paul Reed Smith is like a bigger company. They have that ability. They also have a dealer network that goes, hey, I sell hundreds of thousands of dollars of PRS guitars. So what are the odds that, how many customers do you have to convert to buy this pedal? Not very many. I mean, how many people, people who throw down $5,000 on a guitar at a whim, you think they're really freaked out about $250 pedal? They probably, I hate to say it, man. It's silly what people do with their money, but we all do stupid stuff with our money. It's just different amounts. Okay. So, that all being said, that's kind of the reason they do this. Just like Fender and Gibson, they're just going to do it because they're going to tap in this market. But my gut says that once they feel like they've tapped it, then they're done. They might do a couple more pedals here and there. They might keep it as a line. All these brands, by the way, might keep the lines going for many years. But let's just say we've seen in the past, not with Paul Reed Smith, but with Fender, definitely when Fender's done with a line of pedals, they're just done with it. And they go to the next thing because it's not their main thing. Their main thing is their guitars. So that's what they'll keep on with. So to answer your question, or to focus on your question, what effect does it have on the smaller businesses, the pedal businesses? I personally don't think there's a whole lot of people who bought a horse meat today that was like, man, I was this close to buying a JHS, I don't know, insert pedal here. And all of a sudden I found out about a PRS pedal and I bought that. I think essentially it doesn't take a stretch of imagination. Well, you can't go anywhere on YouTube and watch anybody with 8 subscribers on a channel and not see rows of pedals behind them. People are, there's a sickness, and you all have it too because you're all sitting here with me on a Friday. You have a sickness, but it's a good sickness, right? I don't know. Like I said. So that's my take on that, and I don't think the effect that they'll have on the market. The whole idea of the market is getting too big and overblown and too many things. Sure, of course, but the economies take care of that. Trust me, when everybody's not in the mood to like throw their government checks away that they're not getting anymore, that changes things. Everything changes things, right? You start scrutinizing your purchases when the market gets a little, and you don't even have to, and so you don't have to lose your job or anything. You just have to like, my neighbor down the street lost his job, and this guy I know who knows a guy who's not making as much as he wants. That's just enough to freak people out, slow down a little bit. That changes the market a little bit. All kinds of things can change the market. So I hope that kind of gives you some insight into my thoughts on that, or at least some thoughts on that. Then the next question was from Gas Addict, who says, Phil, appreciate what you do. Likely won't be around for the live show. Is it bad idea to keep your humidifier too close to your amp heads, cabs, and guitars getting colder in the P&W? Thanks. I don't know what P&W is. I apologize. That being said, yeah, look, amplifiers, guitars don't like lots of anything. They don't like lots of dryness. They don't like lots of humidity. They don't like lots of heat. They don't like lots of cold. I like I said, amps, a little different than guitars. They take a lot more abuse than guitars. I like to think if I can live in an environment, they can live in that environment. It's a pretty good rule to follow. So I like, that's my way of saying I wouldn't put a guitar in a garage if it was 6 below zero, and I wouldn't put a guitar in a garage if it was 120, because odds are, if you can't make it, the guitar is not going to be far behind you. I know you're talking about amps, not guitars, but I'm just saying in amps, maybe exaggerate that a little bit more for amps. But yeah, moisture is not good. I can tell you that, like cars, and as we've already discussed on this channel many times, I know nothing about cars, but I know some things, and here's something I know about amps. I do not like to buy amps from the East Coast. I don't like to buy a lot of stuff from the East Coast, but I don't like to buy amps from the East Coast unless they show pictures of the transformers, because a lot of amps, like cars from the East Coast, you get them and they're all rusted up. And like I said, one of the benefits of where I live is just like people drive all the time to come buy rust-free bodies for cars here in Arizona, because rust is just not a thing that happens when it's dry. It's really dry here. Same thing with amps. You know, I don't like opening up the back of an amp and finding that the transformers are all rusted and the parts are all components are corroded and stuff like that. Moisture is not a friend to electronics. It's probably the best way to say that. So would I put my humidifier next to my amplifiers? No, I would not. Can I say it's going to do damage for sure? I cannot, but I'm just saying, like, you know, again, I always go with what I would do. I would not do that. Somebody in this chat will always be from an area that's probably closer to you and probably have some more insight about exactly that environment, like I said. But again, I always caution to say, this is what I would do in that situation. I would not. Huff Daddy 75. Hey, what's up, Huff Daddy? Haven't seen you in a while. Says, tuning in for the first time in a while. Yep, there you go. And to celebrate my birthday. Happy birthday, Huff Daddy. Huff Daddy 75. When I think of Huff Daddy, I want to say Puff Daddy, but I also think of Huffy, like Huffy Bikes. Anyways, it says, I miss you guys. Well, we missed you too. Those of us who know who Huff Daddy is. The rest, you didn't know you missed him, but now you missed him, and you definitely wish him a happy birthday. Clan of House Cats says his 2016 Gibson Les Paul Standard 7. Oh, he just said 2016 Gibson Les Paul Standard. He's not saying his 7-string. Bad or great tool. I'm not a fan. So on 7-strings, as you know, I have the Petrucci 7-string behind me. That you don't have to buy a 7-string that's crazy price like the Petrucci. That's just an insane amount of money for a guitar. However, that being said, I'm very particular when it comes to 7-string necks, as I feel that most 7-string necks are horrible. They're too thick, too chunky. I have learned one thing that has done me well as a piece of advice for 7-string guitars, since they are super rare. And then at one point, if you remember, every company on the planet decided to make a 7-string that had no business doing it. It's like it just became this thing, like everyone's going to do it. And so from that, I have played so many horrible 7-strings, horrible, unplayable guitars, hand fatigues, you know, distress, where you just have to reshape the necks, just no thought put into design the necks, because like we talked about earlier, a lot of designs, you know, people are just emulating, copying them. So the 7-strings, the same thing. So what I've learned, the magic with 7-strings is artist 7-strings. Tends to be when, ironically, when you find a 7-string that is endorsed by an artist, which means it's a copy of his personal guitar that he actually plays, they tend to play pretty good. The other 7-strings, not all of them, but a lot of them that aren't like endorsed or sponsored by an artist, they just can't tend to be made. And that Gibson 7-string was one of those. I thought the neck was a little chunky and it's not very pleasant. And for the price of that guitar, I think you can find a lot better 7-string single cut guitars on the market that will outplay it for sure. The only appeal in my mind, in fact, some of you guys have talked about the PRS pedals being a cash grab. I would say, if in the same likeness, Gibson doing a 7-string was a cash grab. Literally, you know, they know there's a Gibson fan, they know there's a 7-string fan, and therefore somebody with money will be parted with it. And then that was kind of like the thought probably put in that. I think if a company really cares, especially Gibson's level, and again, I kind of hate calling them out on something I'm not 100% sure is this, because I'm just giving you my perception of what they did, which is you would think they would reach out to some artists and have somebody help co-design the guitar and put it into practice and play it for a little while and see. Because like I said, if you guys, I'm a 7-string fan, I like them, but those necks, if they're chunky and wide, they literally are horrible. You will get all kinds of issues with your wrist, hand, and forearm. It's just a lot of work to play a thing. It's just a lot of work. So there you go. So that's my take on that. Collecting value, I would say it's a good investment because it's a 7-string Gibson, and I would imagine they'll very rarely do that again. Whatever. I remember when they did it in 2016. Again, cashing in on that. I don't know how many times they'll come back to it. because again, it's a very small market of people. I mean, the 7-string market's not a huge market to begin with. I mean, it's not small by any means, but I would imagine, think about this, there's more bass players than 7-string players. So that gives you a reference of scale. There's probably more left-handed guitar players than 7-string players. Again, reference of scale. When you hear guitar companies talk about how hard it is to make a left-handed guitar for some damn reason, you know, it's, but apparently, you know, you can make a 7-string. That all being said, if that's a narrow market of 7-string players, then imagine the Gibson 7-string players is an even smaller market. Vimps69 says, it was awesome seeing that influx of videos this week. Thanks for the great stuff. So, Vimps69, since you're kind enough to do a super chat and make that assessment, I feel good now because I've been talking to you guys. I feel like it's not like I've been lying to you guys. I've just been holding all this stuff back that I wasn't allowed to tell you guys. And I don't mean like tell you like I had deals with companies and I wasn't allowed to tell you what they were doing or what I was doing with them. That has nothing to do with it. All background stuff behind my channel. There was so much stuff happening in the last 3 months, right? June, July, and August. Those months in particular. I have done more work, no exaggeration. I've done more work in June, July, and August than I think I've ever done in my entire life. And none of the fruits of that labor was I was able to show you guys in any way. So every Friday on the show, I'd be like, man, it was a crazy week. And I'd like have a video come out, maybe 2 video guys. And I'm like, I bet you they're like, what's he talking about? So you guys know at the same time, I pulled the trigger on like a dozen things. That's exaggerating, 6 things. And of course, one of that is now you're going to see a lot of videos. You're seeing them now. They're starting to ramp up. The process in which I make the videos, I've been refining to a different way so I can keep my motivations. Because again, to me, the most important thing for the video for me is my attitude in the video. That's more important than everything else. I kind of complain sometimes about editing time and cameras and all this stuff. But the reality is, it's me. I got to be in the mood. So that I've refined how I can keep my mood the way I want it, fresh and excited, and be excited about stuff. Also, the second channel, this has been something I've been talking about for a while that I wanted to happen. And of course, I had to discover how to execute on that. And then I did. And I'm very happy with that. And then not in October, but in November, a massive announcement will be coming to the channel. And man, talk about that. I feel like every YouTuber always says that at some point, right? There's a massive announcement coming. This will be massive. So I promise not to overhype anything for you guys, that whatever I say in November, and I won't have to tell you what it is. I promise when I make the announcement, you'll be like, holy crap, that's crazy. In a good way, all very positive stuff. Nothing like the channel's changing, nothing like that. Always, like I said, always more. I'm always giving more on the channel, never taking away is the goal. So it's never about saying, okay, I'm going to stop doing this and start doing this. One thing that you guys will notice starting in October, though, that I'm very excited about is Sharpen My Axe will be back. It is back. It is back for sure because I have a sponsor for it. I actually have 3 sponsors for Sharpen My Axe. So it's back because I have signed contracts, so to speak, to produce the content. This, if you haven't figured out, one of the sponsors is Skillshare. There's other sponsors. Most of them, all 3 of them are not guitar companies. They're not related in that way. So they're not asking me to show a product in the video. They're not asking me to, hey, today's video is sponsored by Seymour Duncan. I'm putting Seymour Duncan's in it. It's not that. It's just all I have to do is the bump. In other words, at the beginning, go, hey, this video is sponsored by these guys. And there'll be a little time thing in there. And if you notice when I did it on the video I did last week with Skillshare, I timestamp everything. So if you want to skip it, you skip it, right? That was part of my discussion with these companies, is like, if my audience wants to skip it, they can skip it, right? But because they sponsor that, I can take those dollars and do Sharpen My Axe videos. So they're coming. In fact, I can tell you how cool is this. I can tell you the exact day, October 15th, there will be a Sharpen My Axe video because I'm contractually obligated to release it that day. And then guess when the next one is? November 15th. Seeing a trend here? And so a lot of things that I've been working on in the background of reaching out to companies that are not again, stop chasing you know, X brand guitars or X brand parts to sponsor a video and say, hey, why don't I just get somebody who's just willing to sponsor a video, right? And then I can take the funds from that sponsorship and do the video. That's the whole point. That's not the big announcement, by the way. That's not even close. The bigger announcements will be way, way bigger. So, so there you go. So there you go. There. So. Sierra says Skillshare sponsors all my favorite YouTubers. You know the funny thing about Skillshare, the hard part for Skillshare is they make you do Skillshare. So obviously I did it. Like I said, I explained in the last video I used for lighting, which I think you might notice in the new videos, the lighting's changed. I warmed up the colors and I did it for videos. And again, I took classes. That's the one thing I got to give them props for, man. There's no, like, I've talked to companies who are flat out just say you like it or just show it, you know, whatever. And I'm like, ugh. They were the first ones like, okay, you have to do it. You have to not only do it, but you have to be able to tell your people in your audience what it is you liked when you were doing it. And I go, oh, that's pretty cool. I got him credit for that. You know, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was cool. All right. Let's see. You know what I'll do? I'll do something fun. If you guys hang out to the end of this show, I'll tell you guys something crazy. It'll be a tease at the end, but it'll be fun. Okay, Grumpy Mike Guitar. What's up, Grumpy Mike? He says, I'm looking forward to watching the Joe Knaggs interview after this evening feast tonight. I'm excited. I don't want to give too much away, but the interview, like I said, very candid guys, very cool guys. So you know how I do those interviews is this is what I'm telling, because I'm going to have Ola Strandberg on the show. I'm going to have I have a ton of people signed up or whatever, ready to do the show. The way I do the shows, which I hope you guys enjoy, is I flat out tell them that I will sign, which I do, an email non-disclosure agreement. What the non-disclosure agreement says is that I will not publish anything they say in the videos unless they approve it. So what happens in those videos is I say, look, let's have a frank, honest conversation. Let's have some fun. Let's talk. And don't worry, nothing that you say that could be, you know, problematic for you will be released. And what I've learned from that, because I've done it a lot of times now, is that most of the time, 99% of what we talked about, they say, yeah, I'm fine with it. Because they would never have said it because of this thought that, like, what if I say this, right? And I find that once they see it and the care that I took with it, in other words, the idea of how it was presented to you guys, in other words, I'm not trying to, like, you know, clickbait it out to them or do something crazy to them or make them look bad or make them look different than they actually look. I find that they always say yes. I can tell you right now, in the past of doing these interviews, ironically, the only things I've ever been asked to take out of the interviews ever, from any of these guys I've ever interviewed, is very consistently interesting that it's always the same thing they're all asking me to take out, which is anything that they feel might aggravate a bigger company because they don't want to do an interview and then, have a big company coming down on them for no reason. And the things that they say that they would want to, like, and so, with, in fairness to Joe Knaggs and Peter Wolf, nothing. They asked me to review nothing. The original videos was sent to them and the patrons. The patrons saw the original video. The patrons can tell you right here, and the members saw it too. They can tell you right now that what was presented to you was originally the same version they were giving out. Sometimes the version is slightly changed, but whatever's changed is always the same thing. They're like, hey, we said this in the video, and we don't want to aggravate a bigger company with what we said. And it's never a secret piece of information. It's always like the way they said something. Like, to give you a reference, it's like if I said, Dovey Doss got millions of subscribers, right? Dovey Doss, he's a friend, so I can use Dovey. If I was to say, like, I don't know why Dovey's so popular, you know what I mean? They would say something like, okay, we want that removed, because that sounds like we're just slamming a bigger, channel, like a bigger company. That's usually what they'll remove, something in that vibe. But Susan says, yeah, the Knaggs video was truth. It was very, very, very good. In fact, so he cursed in the video, and he asked me if I was going to take that out, and I said no, and he's like, okay. So it's like, all right, that was easy. And then, so, I asked if I could come to their shop in Maryland, and they agreed. And I'm going to go. I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to pay for my own airfare and hotel. And again, so you guys know what I asked for in response. I asked for them to accommodate me on a price of a guitar so I can order a guitar, because we need something to videotape. We'll do something like that. And then the plan will hopefully be, if we, because these are long projects that I do, to do a limited run or something of Knaggs, like for you guys. So whatever I do, maybe be an offer to you guys. But again, I won't receive any financial benefit for that. It would just be something, like, hey, you have the option to do this if you want to do it too. Something like that. I don't know yet. I always have to, I'm telling you guys in raw form what the idea is. The idea is to have some fun, do something exciting, and show you guys what it was. That's basically it. So thank you, Joe, or thank you, Grumpy Mike, for the comment about Joe and them. Jeff Parker says, was thinking we always praise seller that ship with something between strings and frets. As a live player, realized one of my guitars has 3,000 miles this year, just in gig bag. Is it really needed? Okay, so what Jeff's talking about is when, usually sellers do this, but manufacturers do it too. I think like not next, Sir does this. They insert a piece of plastic in between the strings and the fretboard. Companies sometimes will do it in paper. They wrap something. It's to stop the strings. In my understanding of this, and my thought process on this is really what it's meant to do is if the front of a case or box gets an impact, that could cause the strings to smack the frets. Those of you who have never had this, I had this happen to me like 15, 20 years ago to an expensive bass where it fell over, as sometimes they do. It fell over and it smacked something. And of course the string dented a fret. I had to pull the fret and refret that fret. And, that is, I think the thought process is that the strings will dent the frets. That's part of it. I don't think they're worried about like the string scratching it. So to your point that, hey, you've had your guitar and you travel with it in a gig bag, here's the major reason why I think they do it. One, I think anything that displays extra care in doing something is always good for the consumer in the end. In other words, it gives the consumer a different feeling, right? There's a feeling that you want when you buy something. You want to feel that there was great care put into it. Some companies really lean into this and some companies don't, but I think that's a feeling, you spending your money, you want to feel like your value was returned. And sometimes you want more than that, but you definitely want to feel like the value was returned. And so I think that's one of the reasons they do it. The second thing that's different though than you carrying in a gig bag and being shipped is, even if you're abusive to your guitar, you're going to do it. You're going to put more care into it than someone who's I don't want to pick on a driver, say like a driver, but you understand what I'm saying. Like the handlers and, that handle the boxes and stuff. I mean, they're in a hurry. There's just a lot of reasons why something can go wrong. So I think it's just an extra step of protection. To answer your question, is it really needed? Well, that's the best part. It's probably not. Like we know there's more guitars shipped without that than with it. And that's not a huge potential issue for damage. But I mean, if I do it when I ship guitars, I tend to run a piece of paper or something in between the strings if I have it, because I think it just again, one more extra step. When I ship that's a cool thing. We can segue to something cool. When I ship a guitar of mine to somebody, usually sold through Reverb or whatever source, I try to pack the guitar well. That's important. But then I try to put a little, I actually have said this and I feel bad, but I tell my wife, I go, a little packing theater in there. I want you to feel like I gave a crap when I ship this to you. And I don't mean because I'm a YouTuber and you're like got a YouTuber thing. I'm just, period. I want you to feel like I cared about what I was shipping to you. And I find that there's two things I've learned, and this is the best success I can ever tell you guys, that if you can do it, execute on it every time, you'll be successful. When it comes to selling anything you sell of your personal nature, as a business, I can care less. But as a personal nature, if you sell anything online, do two things. If you do these two things, you will always do better. Ship it as fast as humanly possible. That tells people get excited about that. Everyone loves it. How many times have you guys bought something from a business or just a person from Montana where you bought it, and then bing, that email comes in from Reverb. Your item has shipped, and you know it just means a label was created, but you're like, that just means so much. Wow, he's already on it. They're already on it. She's already on it. Whatever. They're on it. 1. 2, when they receive the instrument, when you feel like it's overpacked, overboxed, when you feel like there was a lot of time put into that, you feel like, first, there's probably not going to be damage. You're looking through, you don't see any damage, you feel confident. If there is damage, think about how you react differently. You're like, well, I guess there was nothing they could have done. They did the most, right? You're not mad. You're not calling them up going, really? And so I find those two things really do pay a dividend to the point. What I try to do is if I list something on Reverb, as soon as I list it, take the pictures, list it and everything, I like to put it in a box and get it all boxed up and ready to go. Luckily, and so the only caveat to that would be like if it was like 2 weeks later it finally sold, I go, okay, that's been in a box for a while. Let me check it again. But other than that, I just let it go. I want to tell you guys real quick, since we're talking about shipping and used, there was a question earlier from a viewer. Let me see if I can find the question that says, it's from John, who says, John Bratt says, what is the safest place online to post guitars for selling? Currently, right now, I believe that is Reverb. I believe, in my experience, selling, I would sell on Reverb. However, Sweetwater is starting to sell used gear. I contacted Sweetwater when they were selling used gear, let them know that I was interested in trying this experience and doing documentary style thing with them. I don't remember if they said no or they didn't respond, or maybe they said maybe. But anyways, they got back to me and they said, yes, we like this idea. So let me see if I'm right. I'm going to say something and then I go, hope I'm right. Yes. In the links down below now, so whether I've timestamped it or not, it's already there. It says new KYG Shop stuff when it's time for it to go. That link is to my new Sweetwater store. I am going to be doing a video, okay? I'm going to get some stuff. They didn't ask me to do stuff. They asked me to sell one thing, okay? Sweetwater asked me to sell a thing on their platform and document the process and how it went and how my experience went. They just want me to do that experience. I'm going to do that, but I'm actually going to do a bunch of things because I feel like that's even better, right? Who's to say one experience goes well? So I'm going to be listing probably before the end of the weekend, if not by Monday. I'm going to list a bunch of stuff that's time for it to go, and I'll be listing it there so you guys can purchase it from there. And then I'm going to be videotaping. Obviously, none of your personal information will be disclosed, but I'm videotaping the entire experience and, when it got there, did it stick there? And then I'm going to be doing I'm going to be using the option where I don't pay fees to use a Sweetwater card. And then I'm going to buy some stuff too, and I'll buy stuff on there as well. Is what I'm trying to say. So it'll be 2 videos, me selling and me buying. This is something I would imagine they're going to have other YouTubers do it as well. I don't know. But that's the way I want to do it. I want to sell a bunch of stuff and maybe buy a couple things and then give you guys like this is how the experience went to see how it went, how it goes. And it'd be interesting. So, I love stuff like that. It's something I probably would have done anyways. But they were like, hey, if you're interested in doing it, we want you to do it. And the parameters are great. I just do whatever I want. Can't hate that. So like I said, so if you're interested, a lot of you guys always ask me like, when do you sell your stuff or how do you sell your stuff? And I put on Reverb and stuff. So you guys will have the it'll be there. Well, another thing, if you guys haven't bought a lot of stuff from me, you'll know I don't really upcharge anything. I try to sell the stuff either below what the market is. I kind of try to make it, I know that 9 out of 10 times the viewer buys my stuff. So I try to kind of make it like cool, that they got this. You know what I mean? Not like this was in a video. It was kind of like, if everyone's selling it used for $600, I try to go $550 or something. I try to go a little less. I try to always on the lower end. The only exceptions would be if it's something really unique and I'm just not I just can't do it. Like I can't give it away if I know I can sell it for a lot more. But I always try to be very aggressive with my pricing. But I want you to be aware it's because of my YouTuber. If it wasn't like I felt like like the audience is buying, I, like everybody else, I'd probably try to get as much as I can for it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So you try to sell it for the highest price, try to buy it for the least price. That's pretty much the market at play. But I try to be a little bit more aggressive with the stuff, the pricing I sell because of that. So that being said, you need to be on it when I list stuff because it never tends to stick around because it's usually a good price. Pedally, what's up? Says for the pedal jar, we shipped a pedal to Florida this week, so recovery is on its underway. Nice. There's a new a pedal video in November that's going to be exciting. While we're talking, I just got the delivery notice that it's here, so I'm very excited about that. I can't tell you what it is. Obviously, it doesn't come out till November, but I can tell you that's going to be it's going to be a biggie. It's one of those I wouldn't have said yes to it if it wasn't for the fact I'm like, oh yeah, that's a biggie. I'm curious. Mike says, I replaced all of my electronics on my guitar. Now, when all of the switches are off, I still get some sound. Do you know what might be wrong? Well, yeah. What's probably happening, and my guess is obviously something besides, hey, something's not wired correctly. Sounds like just vaguely from that description, something's not grounded out. Usually off is grounding out. You know what I mean? That's usually the best way to think about it. Something's grounding out or it's being disconnected from the circuit. So either way, you're having something that's not disconnected fully. So it's looped in incorrectly somewhere else, or it's not being grounded out. My guess is it could be looped in somewhere. When you say switches are off, I mean, this is the problem with this question. It's a lot of the stuff like I just don't know when you're saying switches. Like, what are we talking about? 3 switches? Are we talking about 1 switch? You said switches. What I can tell you is that make sure. A lot of times you kind of work it out from what you're doing. Make sure you're using a diagram if you're new to electronics, and you can find the diagram for whatever you're doing. The best thing to do is try to find a guitar that's close to your guitar that has what you have, and then Google that diagram and pull it up. It'll help you immensely. I don't know if that's the best advice, but that's a good way to start. Fret Level Midnight says, are you ever going to buy a Maybach? No. I know you like them. I do. The quality seems to be on par. 5K plus Gibsons. So I agree. I absolutely agree. And no, I have no inkling to buy one. I told you I met those guys in Germany at one of the events, and I told you guys the story. I was very interested in buying one, and they basically, I understand what they were saying. It was right. So, obviously, again, let's be very clear. I went to Germany right when they did the Play Authentic, don't copy our guitars or we're going to kill you video. I don't want to gonna get in trouble. That's not what they said, by the way. For the record, they didn't say they were going to kill anybody. They were just saying like, don't copy their guitars, whatever their ultimatum was, that, Play Authentic. So when I was there and I played the Maybach, I said, hey, I like this guitar a lot, this Les Paul. I had not bought my high-end Les Paul that I have now. I said, look, I'd like to buy your guitar. So can I buy it? And they not only didn't want to have it on the channel, they didn't want to buy it. Or they didn't want me to buy it. They were afraid. They flat out told me, right now in this climate, we're afraid to send this guitar to the U.S. and have Gibson, have a backlash. And let's be very clear. They knew that if I do a video, that video could get, 10,000 views. It could get 100,000 views, 200,000 views. Either way, it's on somebody's radar, and it's going to be on Gibson's radar. And so they didn't want that. So I have to respect that. Does that stop me from buying one now? No, but, it's not on my radar, is basically what I'm saying. But all of you, I can tell you, I've played a bunch of the Maybach guitars. All the ones I played were like Fret Level Midnight. I agree with you 100%. Up there with it. I would gladly play a Maybach Strat copy, Relic Strat. I would play a Maybach Gibson Les Paul style guitar. I would absolutely do that. But at the time they weren't interested in, and because they weren't interested, I have no contact. It's not like they were like one day soon. They didn't have any reason to work with me, and they didn't give me information. I wouldn't know how to get a hold of any of those guys. So the only way I can buy one is like everybody else. I could go on Reverb and find one and buy one. Maybe I'd do it, but I don't know. Like I said, I kind of feel weird feel weird, meaning buying it, and if I did a video and it caused them grief. You never know. Super Lead 100 says, doesn't seem to bother Takai and Edwards. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe they're exaggerating, maybe the situation. But more importantly, I think, look, no one wants a cease and desist letter from $1 billion company. That's just, let's be very clear. I mean, if you're those of you watching right now, if you have a small business, you understand no small business wants a cease and desist letter. It's very expensive to answer a letter. You don't want to not hire an attorney to send your response, and you don't want to pay for an attorney to send your response. So, I mean, it's a reason. There's a reason why big companies can really push down a small company without even, without any effort at all. So that's basically what's happening. So Brian says, it's like the IRS knocking on the door. Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's the same feeling, at least. It's that, hey, we don't like this, and you got to stop. And so Fret Level Moonlight says, Maybach is not infringing on Gibson's copyright in the EU or Asia, but they are in the US. Yes. I think that was kind of that's what I got from it, was kind of like, if you were here, we would be cool, but we're not sending it to the USA. So some YouTuber can flat out say, look, they're not stupid either, Maybach. So, I've said a lot of things that put Gibson on the flare list of crazy, right? Especially on this channel, you say things that gets them all fired up. So the last thing they want me to do is getting Gibson all fired up at them. I get it. I totally get it. And especially since you can understand they can't control what I say. So, it's not just obviously they're not afraid that I'll be like, Maybach's really good. It'll be like, what if I title the video, get what Gibson's charging is a crime, and this is proof. And then it goes viral, and Gibson, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying, because I don't know what would happen, but I'm giving you a scenario in which it could be problematic for everybody. You don't want Gibson all fired up going, okay, push those guys, squash that. So who knows? There you go. That's what happened. There. So to answer your question, no, it's not on my radar for that reason. Jeff with 1F says, did you get the PRS shirt I sent you? I absolutely did. I almost wore it today, so you know. Jeff had sent me the funniest damn t-shirt ever. I mean, ever. I haven't worn, I feel bad. Last week and this week, I don't think I did either last week. I haven't worn any of the shirts you guys been sending me for the shirt swap thing. It's just poor planning on my part, Jeff. So, you were on the radar. I was like, that was the shirt I was going to wear today. And, instead, I decided to have lunch with my wife and get my truck washed is what I did. So I did that instead. And I did that because I had a delivery today, a cool thing to get delivered, and I need to go pick it up. And I was like, okay, let's go do that, get the truck washed and go have lunch. And then when I came back, it was like, okay, I got to get everything ready. So I didn't have the shirt. But I will wear the shirt, I promise, next Friday, because you guys will get a kick out of it. Jeff, what I will warn you about, this is why it's funny. I showed the shirt to all my friends, and half of them want to buy that shirt. So if you do have a way for somebody to order that shirt from you or do something like that, I'm sure the audience is going to have the same reaction. I don't want to give away the thing, but it's a funny shirt about PRS. It's funny. It's in good taste. It's not mean. It's just funny. It's a funny shirt. In fact, I almost want to send one to PRS, not to Paul. I don't know Paul, but like I said, I've met him, but I said a million times, I could probably walk into him right now. He wouldn't know who I am, even though I've interviewed him 3 or 4 times and talked to him 3 or 4 times. That all being said, I would listen to my friends at PRS. They would crack up. Red Eye Bloom says, I'm thinking about putting solderless EMGs in my Ibanez GIO bass and refinishing it. I'm not trying to increase resale value, because you won't. So that's why you're not doing that. Just looking to make it how I want. Am I crazy? You're not crazy, man. Look, this is not the stock market. This is not the housing market. It's not about good and bad investments all the time. Okay. It's about exactly that. The joy of improving a GIO bass and making it play great. As long as you understand what you're doing, I don't see any problem with that. People have opinions about whether you should or shouldn't mod up a guitar. Here's what my only concern is. Do you know what happens when you do that? And you don't get any value for that. If you upgrade a GIO bass and put expensive pickups in it, refinish it, you are losing value, not gaining value in the instrument. Nothing wrong with that as long as you know that, right? I just don't want you to ever get at the end and you go, one day you go to sell it and you're like, I mean, it's not even as worth as much as a GIO without those things. Custom refinishing or refinishing always devalues instruments. Very rarely, any instrument, even cheap or expensive, very rarely does it increase the value. Rarely. Pickups, same thing. It's a wash. Okay, it's like you're just giving away that money. So I say do it. I always remind everybody when you mod anything, do it. That's the whole premise behind the Sharp Max. Do as many of the mods as non-marring as possible. What I mean by that is so you don't have to drill new holes, you don't have to do new things, and keep the original parts so you can put it all back because, again, keep those parts. What's great about putting AMGs in a bass, it'll sound great. It'll play great. One day, if you outgrow the bass, then you take those pickups out, you put the originals back, and you can put those pickups in another instrument. They still sound as good and just as valuable. And if you don't and you keep the bass forever, like I said, no harm, no foul. You have a great bass and you'll enjoy it the rest of your life. That's the answer. At least that's my answer. The Juggernaut says, hey, Phil, what are your thoughts on the series parallel single coils? Sure, I love series. Do you have a guitar with this feature? I do. And do you use series mode? I do. I have a few guitars with this modification. My Somnium guitar has that modification as well. So to answer your question, I'm not I like both. I like series more. I don't know why. I don't know how to say his name. They're all off. That's as close as I'm getting. Howdy, Phil. My San Dimas stock JB59 set and unique Charvel wiring sounds strange. The bridge sounds like a neck pickup, no bite. Any idea why? Sure. Well, first of all, we got to make sure. Did you verify that it is wired the way you think it is? Just because the switch is telling you it's the bridge position, you need to actually confirm that by testing it. One of the things you can do, of course, is just take a small metal object, something light, and tap on the slugs. So when you're in the position, bridge, tap on that slug. When you go to the neck, tap on the slug. Make sure that it's actually selecting the pickups you think, because it might not be. I seem so obvious to say, but sometimes, hey, sometimes we're like, we just trust the world. And the world sometimes disappoints, and sometimes that Charvel wiring is not what it's saying it is. So that's one thing that can happen. The other thing that can happen is you could have the pickup, the potentiometer could be junk. I mean, it's all, again, I don't know. It says you're saying it's stock, so I'm assuming that no one's messed with it. So I don't think anybody would have took anything else. One of the reasons also your JB might not have any bite is it might be too far away from the strings. It would have to be pretty far away because the JB is like 17K. It's a monster. 14K, something like that. It's a monster pickup. So it doesn't have to be close to the strings. It's going to pretty much, that magnetic field's pretty powerful because, again, it has a lot of winds on it, and the magnets are pretty powerful on top of that. So I don't see that as a problem, but it could be pretty far away. That could be a problem too. Another problem can be that you have a defective or an issue with your tone control. I don't know. You're saying San Dimas, so sometimes no tone control is there. Sometimes tone control is there, depending on the model. If you have a tone control, this is a problem I've experienced in the past where it's not fully disconnected out of the circuit. So whether you realize it or not, even though if your knob's all the way forward, your tone control is it's at 10 or 20% mode. In other words, you have a little bit of the circuit or a little bit of the signal backed off in the tone control. So those are things I would do. Believe it or not, one of the fixes for that sometimes is silly is sometimes you deoxid or you clean out that tone control because that's what's happening. It's like kind of stopping. It's not going to the point where it's almost like true bypass. Or bypass completely, which is why Fender likes the no-load pot now for tone controls because it really kind of lets you know that it's out of the circuit. Those are all ideas that are pretty easy to do and check. I'm really curious, but I really kind of like, it sounds to me like you're probably on your neck pickup and don't realize it. As silly as that sounds, The other thing that can happen too is the switch could be bad. And if the switch is bad, you're never fully on the bridge. You might be into like bridge, neck, and neck. Like it might not be actually disengaging the way it is, the way you want it to be. So I would check everything. First, simple thing is just go through the electronics and look at them, clean them, make sure they're clean, and then check everything, whether you use a multimeter or, like I said, just use the slugs and tap on them. Either way will give you an idea. Just make sure your volume on your amp's really low when you tap on them. And make sure it's also in clean channel, like so you don't want the distortion going. Damien says, sharp frets on my new Jag. I had a tech work on them twice. The ends look nice and don't sprout, but still hurt. Could they be too tall or high? Tall frets are definitely a factor for this. Or is it my tech not working well? Next steps, think. Okay, so, you have a Fender. I'm assuming it's Fender Jag because you're just saying a new Fender Jaguar. You're saying new. I'm assuming new model, not new to you, like it's a used model. I don't know what series you have because they do use different fret wire. For instance, the USA ones are now using the vintage tall frets, and they're not super tall, but they're tall. And in what I always kind of focus on is when I like tall frets, and tall frets feel like speed bumps when you go down. Even if they're polished really well, they can feel like speed bumps because there's such a dramatic, lift over the fretboard. So this could be the problem you're having. Absolutely, right? You're feeling that. And of course, if they're not perfectly rounded, you're feeling something that's not sharp, but it's rubbing against your hand and it gets raw. You're playing, right? It's no different than anything else. So that's one thing I would think of is that could be a problem. But also, they do need to be polished and rounded over very nicely. And just because your frets don't have sprout doesn't mean that you don't have a problem. For instance, there are different ways. If you watch all the videos I've done over the years, you see there's different ways to round a fret. They're rounded. They're either what is this? I'm trying to think. Why can't I think of the word? Spherical, I think I want to say, right? Frets. Then they're tapered at an angle. Some are rounded, right? I like to call them bearing frets. I think. I'm trying to think. Somebody was just telling me what I called them, and I was laughing the other day, going, "Do I call them that?" Like ball bearing frets, because they remind me of ball bearings. My point is that it's not just having the frets treated and rounded or make sure the sprout's corrected. You may have to change the way that they feel and taper. But keep in mind, some of the ways to fix that, do create problems with the high string kind of coming off the edge. So that's all things I would think about. And my gut instinct of what you're telling me is that the problem probably isn't that they're not polished at all. They're just not, again, they're protruding over the fretboard. They're protruding too far to the side of the fretboard, and you're feeling that. And you have to seriously look at if you want to taper those off at an angle. And that's what I would recommend, but you got to make sure you have enough string. You have a distance between the high E string and the fretboard, the edge of the fretboard. That is very important. McDowell says, looking for a Nitro 335 with a proper ears body carve, traditional-ish specs. Any reason for such a gap in the 335 style shallow market copyright? Thanks. No. I think the biggest problem with the 335 and hollow bodies in general is they're just not a huge market, comparative speaking. I mean, it's not hard to figure out. When I always talk about this, when it talks about hollow bodies and semi-hollow bodies, walking into a store, it's like walking in a music store or guitar shop is like walking into a record store where the rock, metal, DJ, rap section is huge. The jazz section is very tiny. The blues section is very, very tiny, and that's just how that works. And the folk section is the tiniest usually. And you go in a music store and it works the same way, right? You're going to see a lot of the acoustic guitars, a lot of the electric guitars, and then the hollow body guitars are a much smaller sample rate. So the same thing with you. The reason you're having trouble is because there's just not a lot. You have to look a lot harder, and you have to be out on top and looking around for it. So it's not just so much as a copyright or anything like that. It's just the demand. They're not going to make as many style guitars they're not going to do as many of these guitars. So you're going to see less versions of them because there's not a whole lot it's not a deep market to dive into. Also, it's expensive to make. They cannot just pump out hollow bodies as cheaply as they can solid body guitars. I mean, that's the whole purpose of a solid body. Remember, the entire design of a solid body guitar was to cut the price down. It was actually most of the purpose. It was kind of like, do we really need to go through all this work? Is the sound really just coming from a pickup? Maybe we should make a solid body guitar. That's if you read the history of solid body guitars, if you read the history of Gibson, if you read the history of Fender, it starts basically as simple as that. Can we bypass all this hard work and just make this thing cheap? And ergo, electric guitars are cheap to make versus hollow bodies, and the market is smaller. So you have a lot of things against the hollow body market. So that being said, you just got to keep looking and look out there, and or join some forums that are devoted to hollow bodies, because people get really into their guitars and they're going to have a lot of resources for you because they're watching it every day. Sprinkles Hour says, for the like Zappa-ish tone. Okay. Will it be better, JHS Crayon or Hudson Broadcast? Welcome any suggestions. I like the JHS Crayon. That would be my suggestion. Okay. Pablo says, hey, Phil, do you have any experience comments on the SD1 4-pounder SSL 4s? Looking to put them in my Sterling Cutlass. Okay, so I think you mean the SD1. I see it. Quarter pounder. I think it's quarter pounder. SD quarter pounder. I see. It's all running together now. The quarter pounders, SSL 4s, looking to put them in my Sterling Cutlass. I like the SSLs 4s. I like those pickups by Seymour Duncan. Seymour Duncan, one of the pickups I love that they do is the quarter pounders. Go that route. To me, it's not so much that they're better pickups. It's just if I'm going for something from Seymour Duncan that's cool and unique, or something that has a tone that I just love, it's the quarter pounders. That's where I would kind of look at that. Okay. Meester says, happy Friday, Phil and friends. Evertune, all the best. The Evertune video, yeah, it was funny. No movement on that at all on my end on getting that done, sadly enough. He also says, I hope your wife will join you in a video sometime. My wife, I told you she was willing to do it off camera and maybe, help me with some stuff, and it was going to work out this week, and then it didn't. He says, my wife is also supportive of my love of guitar, to the point, of course, enjoy your weekend to a point. He says, enjoy your weekend. Oh, and everyone else, please enjoy their weekend too. Yes. Well, remember, like now, think about this. When I'm doing these videos, my wife's usually working. She's usually doing stuff, handling patron stuff. That's a big part of what she does. The patron group's pretty big. It probably doesn't seem like it, but it's like its own animal. It's a thing between them and the members. There's a lot of things going on. And so she's handling a lot of stuff. Right now, what she's handling on is, I told her this morning that this holiday season, I would really like to have Dickies Know Your Gear shirts. And this is a very, very hard process. As you guys know, I only wear the Dickies Know Your Gear shirts. That's the ones I like. They're very expensive. The way I have them made, we made a run for the patrons a while back. And I think I've talked about this, or maybe I talked about the patrons and I never told you guys about it. But when it comes to the Dickies shirts, I like my Dickies work shirts when I work on guitars, when I do stuff. But I'm very particular. It has to be the Dickies brand. It has to be black or gray. I do both. The logo, and the reason is because the reason it has to be Dickies, it's the material. I always stain my shirts when I'm working on guitars. I'm always getting either fretboard conditioner or some kind of oils or some finish on there. And I feel like I always get these clean. These shirts always get clean. I wash them a lot, and they because shirts fade and stuff, these take a beating. But also the logo not only has to be stitched, because I don't like it, because I wash it so much that if they do the printed thing on there, it comes off. So it has to be stitched. But also the logo has to be stitched in silver thread. And the reason is because I want it to look like it normally does. It's white, like, on this shirt, it's fans, but it's white logo. But I had an experience once where something stained the white, and it looked like, obviously it looked like it got stained, and the silver seems to hide stuff. So it's all about, like, I want this work shirt to be the way I want it. So that's the way I have them. So I refused to ever do those shirts unless they were exactly what I had. And we had done things where we had told patrons they could order them, and my wife, she has a I don't want to say a lady, that seems so weird. She has some ladies. That's how she tells me, these ladies. do this. Like they're seamstress, like out of a house. I think she goes to a house and they do the work and they do the shirts. So this year, November, December, I asked my wife to say, screw it, let's do a limited run of them. And I told her all the sizes I want, how many I wanted, and I would let you guys know they're available, and she'll have to ship them and stuff. So right now, I'm sure that's what she's working on, something to that effect. So stuff like that, when I come up with these harebrained schemes of what I want her to, what I want to do, she unfortunately has to execute on those most of the time. Unplayed video games says, any decent low latency wireless headphone for Helix? I don't know. I only have, everyone in the family has a Bose wireless headphone. When we couldn't go on vacations during COVID, I decided I'd buy so I bought my daughter, my son, and my wife a Bose headphones. They were very expensive, especially at one time buying all three. And it was like, cause they were, listening to me play guitar all day. Normally they get out of the house, they were trapped. So I did that. I got to listen to my wife's. They sounded pretty good. I don't use them. Roland, which is not Roland, it's some other company, but Roland Boss, when I was at Sweetwater, made me a set with my logos on it. I still have not tried them because I told you I'm not a big headphone person. I don't use them very often. So unfortunately, I don't know the answer there, but I like answering this, telling you I don't know, because viewers will be able to tell you like, yeah, this is what I use. This is what I use. Remember, there's a lot of people here that use headphones. I would say on average Friday audience, I would say 30%, probably 30, 40%. Is headphones, using headphones, just talking to you guys, a lot of you guys use headphones. I don't. It's one of the benefits of making a living with the guitar. There's no like, so you guys know, there's no like, can you please turn it down? We're trying to watch TV. No, there's none of that in my house. It's always, I make money with guitars, and I've made money for guitars for so many years now that my whole family is just kind of conditioned for like whatever dad's doing, it's money wise. And I know it's part of my joy too. And I get to do that. I get to lean into it. I try not to take advantage. I try not to like, this isn't really for work. But so I feel like I hear my wife's saying this right now. Even when I tell her, I go, oh, sorry, I was actually goofing off for like an hour. She'll tell me, she goes, you're not goofing off. She's like, I know you. It's always research or something. She's like, or it's fine, putting finishing the skill set or something. So I don't have to use headphones is what I'm trying to say. So I very rarely use them. Usually if I'm traveling, I've done videos where I talk about when I'm traveling, do that, or other things. Alvaro says, love my PRSS2 Mira just as much as you. Love your core. I still have the stock pickups, but looking to upgrade. What would you knee-jerk upgrade be? What would my knee-jerk... You know what pickups I actually tried recently I really, really liked is the Mules by Bare Knuckle. That's what's in that Knaggs. There. Holy crap, those are good. Like really good. When you get a guitar... like the Knaggs, you get a guitar and all of a sudden you're like, man, this thing sounds really good. And then you pull all these other guitars. And especially here, there's a lot of guitars here. There's a lot of exotic, affordable, expensive, unique, mass produced. I'm trying to say, like, I have it all covered. There's something here. It's like a small music store in the studio. And when you play guitar and you go, man, this sounds really good, you try to fixate what's on that. And in this case, it was those Mules, which are Bare Knuckles, I guess, version of the 59s, and a PAF, I should say PAF. Absolutely love them. Now, here's why I'm saying that, because they're a little on the bright side, just a little bit. And I think with your guitar, I think that would actually be really well. So I'm not just saying that because I got a guitar with Mules and I'm like, oh, I like my Mules, but I like them. And one of the things I like about them, I think would really benefit your guitar. So the behind me right now, I'm pointing at the Knaggs, which has Mules, and then over to the, I guess it's the left or right of that guitar, depending on how you're looking at it, there's a Paul Reed Smith S2 594. I actually like that guitar. It's all stock, but I'm going to be putting probably Mules in that because that guitar sounds great. But a lot of you guys say the same thing about S2 pickups. They're a little on the dark side, and I think the Mules will be a little brighter. So I'm thinking about putting mules in there. In that guitar. So I'm just telling you the same thing I'm thinking about doing. John said, what are the Northern Lights comparable to? That's the pickup sidewind. Like I said, those are like a PAF, just not hotter, more push. This is the tricky part. See, we're so conditioned to talk about like pickups output. Like I always say it, and I always feel bad when I say like it pushes the amp a little harder. That's not really true when I say pushes. Like when I say pushes the amp harder, I don't mean like it makes the amp break up. I mean like if I hit a note, that note punches out at you like this, like it snaps at you. It's a very has more mid highs in it, so it's not just so bright. It actually has a higher mid frequency. Vim 69. It's funny. That's the one thing that's weird when you make something. And everybody's like, "Hey, how do you feel?" Like the mules. Vim 69 says, "How do you like the mules compared to the Blackstocks?" I like them both. I like them. Obviously, I have more Blackstocks in my pickups than mules, but that doesn't mean anything to me. I would never want any. Like think about it this way. Nothing in me wants one flavor of ice cream. Like I want all the 31 flavors, right? Same thing with pickups and guitars. I want more flavors than just one. So there's things I like about both. By the way, one of the big announcements coming is about pickups, but that's not the big announcement. So, let's see. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Kevin says he likes his. I sent Kevin the Blackstocks. Remember, he was the one I picked as a winner that day and sent it that way. Well, it's basically in a show. Susan says I'm teasing you guys now, so let me tell you guys what's going on. And this is a real tease. So there's a couple things. Obviously, you guys know I was in California last week. And before I start this, I got to do the last super chat, which is Richard. Richard says, "Hey Phil, do you often play really? Oh, do you often play? I'm just gonna say it. Do you often play really loud when testing amps, or do you use ear protection?" I don't play loud enough to need ear protection. I have ear filters and I use them. Like if I'm around a drummer, I have ear filters in a second. If I'm around a loud amplifier or somebody playing loud, I have ear filters. If I go not only concerts, but if I go to anywhere loud at all, like it doesn't even have to be a music. It just could be, like I go to a factory, I wear ear filters. I say ear filters, not earplugs, because I use ear filters. Like usually, ear filters are different. I have two kinds. I think one is 10 decibels and one's 15 decibels. So it drops it by 10 decibels and drops it by 15 decibels. And I like them because they don't sound all muffly. You hear clear. It just cuts down, the amount of decibels that are coming in your ears. But playing in the house, I mean, right when I film the video, I might juice the amp up if that's part of the thing for the video. But most of the time I'm not playing so loud that I have to worry about it, and I'm not playing long enough to worry about it, so it's pretty safe. I play it pretty safe with my ears. Like I said, I've been very lucky as someone who's had to stand next to tanks when they're firing, and someone who's been to concerts and playing music my whole life. You'd think my ears would be damaged, but I've wore hearing protection so much that I've been very fortunate. And then Jeff just wanted to thank me for helping with finding answers to his replacement neck. You're welcome, Jeff. Thank you. So that being said, what was the teaser thing? So as you guys know, I was in California last week. One of the things I can tease, and because I was allowed to tell you, was one of the things I did, which I was able to go to Bad Cat, John Thompson, who is Bad Cat. I was able to go down there and try all the 3 new Bad Cat prototypes and play them. Amazing. This is going to be game changing for the industry. I like talk about overhyping something, man. I feel horrible saying this to you guys, but I'm telling you what I texted him when I got back home. I said, I feel like I know what it feels like to see Star Wars before it hit the theaters and tell everybody like, man, when you see what they're doing, you're going to be blown away. So that's exciting. That's not why I was in California. Since I was in California, I went and saw him because he's a good friend, and I got to see the new amplifiers. By the way, he sent one home with me. I was actually with a friend who tried to buy one, but they don't have any. And he told me flat out that he John said he only had 2 and that were built, that they're ramping up for production right now. And that one went to Rhett Shaw and one went to me. I guess Rhett was at the shop too. A couple weeks before or something, a week before. So I'll be doing the video. He told me I don't have to wait to the official release. This isn't like a marketing thing. He's like, you don't have to do that just whenever you feel like sharing it. So I'm working on it right now. That's exciting. I thought I'd share that with you. New look. The amps look different. The amps are different. This is a totally different amp. This isn't like the Cub. So what I'm going to be showing you, he does make the Cub still, but it's not going to be like a, hey, it's the Cub 2.0. This is a totally different amp. That being said, the thing I can tell you is, I've been telling you guys about a partnership agreement that I signed a partnership agreement. I have a new company, another company. I should say another because at this point, I'm too many companies. What we're going to be announcing in November, which is what I'm teasing you guys about, which is why I was in California, is we're doing something that's not, I don't want to do anything where I'm like, hey, just like with the pickups, I don't want to do anything where it's like, what's your favorite pickup? My pickup. What's your favorite guitar? My guitar. Right? I don't want to have a product line to sell you guys. If I did, I would have done an online course or something because that's where all the money's at. If I would have done online courses, $19.95 on sale for $9. Nothing wrong with that. My friends all do it on YouTube and I love them all dearly. And I've even promoted for them to do that stuff. But that's not what I want to do. I want to have these conversations. That's why I have patrons and members back the live show. Look, it's a no-brainer. 50,000 views on average for a live show, and then more than that on a streaming on a podcast. The companies do come and say, "Hey, we'd like to sponsor this," and I'm like, "No, I love that the audience does it." There's no, I can talk freely here. It's my safe space to talk freely with you guys. I don't have to worry about offending companies because, they're not involved. And not that I'm worried about it when I'm doing their videos, but I just feel like it's just a little bit more. Okay. That all being said, there's been this question doing YouTube, and this is what I want to tell you guys. There's this question that's been bothering me. This has been really bothering me on YouTube, and COVID made it worse. And I've been talking to a lot of YouTubers, and you've seen a lot of YouTube channels say things like, oh, I've been stopping doing YouTube. It's been emotionally breaking me down. There's all these things that have been, breaking me down. And like you guys, I felt like this was uplifting. So what a lot of channels told you, which I understand, that, hey, they were feeling depression, they were feeling some pain to this. I was feeling that too, but from the live show, from this Friday show, I was feeling your energy back. You guys, you carried me through COVID. I feel horrible whenever I get any emails or comments about you guys saying it was, the show made it great for me, because I feel like, man, I should deserve no credit. You did the opposite. You guys kept me going. That all being said, when I do a video, the thing that's been bugging me, driving me crazy, is when I do a video on a cheap guitar, all I get told is it's slave labor. All I get told is it's horrible. All I get told is in the comment sections, let's say 60-40, 60% of the comments are this is horrible. When I do an expensive guitar, I get told this is all greed. This is all evil. Guitars don't know how to spend. And again, I'm not saying the trolls. I'm not talking about trolls. I don't care about trolls. I'm talking about the senses of the community here. What does the community feel? And somewhere in this, what I've kind of learned, and this is what I learned from doing, whether it's a repair video, what I learned from doing reviews is that although you will say, oh, I enjoyed that review, or hey, it was helpful, what I've learned about reviews is they will absolutely change the way a company thinks and works. Absolutely. Absolutely. I have not only done them, but I've seen other channels do them too. I have seen where not just calling somebody to the mat and calling them out for their bad stuff, just talking about things, showing things has changed the way a company looks at something, at the way a company adjusts something, at a thought that company has. To the point where I was like, okay, so here's what I know. I know that you can buy a $7,000 guitar made in the United States, and that essentially that guitar is extremely expensive. And you're being told that these expensive guitars can't be done cheaper unless they go overseas. And if they go overseas, then the people aren't treated right. And I kind of feel like at some time I was feeling this frustration making content like, so there's got to be something else between these two pieces, these two ideas, this idea that it's expensive and it's only for the rich people, and it's affordable, but it's, of course, it's taking advantage of the working person. And so through just the irony of COVID and meeting friends online, we talked about, I met some friends, or I have some friends, and we all have a particular skill set. And we came together and we said, what if we do something that is disruptive to the industry? I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm just giving you the teaser because you guys waited to the end. The idea is as simple as that. What if we did something that we're told can't be done in the industry? Not to make it a groundbreaking product, not to make a lot of money on it, not to sell it to you guys. So at every video, I got to sell you something, but just to show it can be done, so that almost like referencing a repair video that I've done in the past, or almost like referencing a review video in the past, when somebody says something, I can say, oh yeah, well then how did we do it? So that's what's coming up. That's what's coming out. So it's a cool project, and it's a cool idea, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. And you'll see. I know everyone's first reaction, besides anything else, will be, how the hell did you get all the time to do all this besides what you're doing? And I don't know the answer, and I just want to thank my children and my wife for being understanding for the last few months. And on that note, that's the only tease you guys get. So then, unfortunately, nothing else till November. But as always, I want to thank you guys for hanging out to the end, hanging out with me, sharing guitar conversations with me. And as always, I will see you guys next Friday at 3 o'clock. Check out that Knaggs interview, because like I said, it was really cool. Even if you're not into Knaggs, it's just nice to see what's in the mind of a guitar creator and a guitar builder. And as always, I want to thank you guys so much for your time. Till the next time, know your gear.